All right, I've got a job to do. And it has to do with this deck again. Before I get too far away from this deck project, I've got quite a few pieces of wood that are left over from this deck. And so while that wood is still out, while all my tools are still out, and while this deck project is still kind of fresh here, I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and do that bar that I was thinking about doing. When I was putting this whole deck together and I was cleaning all this stuff out and I had this whole covered arbor right here available to me now, I knew I wanted to put my grill over here. But I got to thinking this would be a good area to put a bar right across these two 4x4s right here. Something you could put some bar stools up, have a little work center behind it, and just use it for that kind of thing. If you have some folks over, then you have a little bar area you can sit at. I have an idea in my head of how I want it to look. I don't have any blueprints or anything like that. That's just not how I roll. I don't do anything with blueprints. I put it together. If I don't like it, I tear it back down and try again. But I think I've got a pretty good idea. I've gone to Google, I've gone to YouTube, and I've just looked at bar ideas. And with the material that I have, I think that I'm going to come up with a pretty cool bar across there. I am going to repurpose this arbor looking thing that I have right here. I've already put part of that back together again. That's what I had sitting right here in this area originally. And so I am going to repurpose some of that. This thing actually is going to be the work center that is going to sit right here behind the bar. So I'll have a little area, I'll have kind of like a little worktop, and I'll have some shelves right up underneath there. These legs right here, or these risers, will get cut off. And then there's also some of the roofing that was on this arbor right here, black steel panels that I think I'm going to be able to incorporate into the front of that bar right there. We'll see. I'm kind of making this up as I go. But anyway, that's what we're going to do, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, I have got the bar complete. But before I go too much further and start covering up the basic structure in the back, I thought I would stop right here and just kind of show you how I decided to build this bar. And so first and foremost, the top, to a lot of bars and a lot of people who do bars, the top is always a big deal. There's all kinds of ideas. I mean, you can go from, marble to tile to, one piece, all kinds of exotic woods or whatever. I decided what I wanted to do when I decided to build this bar was to use the materials that I had left over from my deck project. So I immediately knew that I was going to be using this 5/4 decking board on the top, and so what I did is I made the exterior frame so that it would take 5 equal 5/4 decking boards. So that's what I decided to do. So the basic structure, let's go behind here and see what I decided to do. So I put a 2x4 along the inside of my existing 4x4. I put another 2x4 across the top. And the important thing here that I was looking to do was, in relation to this 4x4, notice that I have a shorter area in the back than I do in the front. And the reason that I did that is because if you're going to put bar stools up underneath here, a lot of people will make these bars where it doesn't come out far enough. So if somebody slides up to a bar, I mean literally the old term belly up to the bar, if it's too short right here, then you don't have enough room for your knees. And a lot of people end up having to sit sideways at the bar, and so I wanted to make sure that that was not the case here. I wanted to make sure that you could slide all the way up and had plenty of room for your knees underneath. So I have a longer area in the front than I do in the back as far as structurally is concerned. And then the way that I continue to support that after I did this initial structure, which I also did down on the other end, is then I came through with 2x4s spaced equally along the length underneath to add additional support for the middle. And then I came through with 2x6s. I could have easily done that with 2x4s, but I didn't have 2x4s, but I had a 2x6. And so I was just on a quest to use the material that I had. So I put 2x6s up underneath here, attached them to the 2x4s. You can see I did it again here and again there, all the way down to the floor level. And that gives me the additional support up underneath the bar. Not only this way, but also gives me the additional support going along this way. And of course, I attach those 2x4s up top with screws all the way across. And then the other thing I did with the additional decking boards that I had was I ran 3 equal decking boards across the length. So I have one at the top, one in the middle, and then one down in the bottom. And that was so I could attach the panels. Whatever panel idea I decided to come up with, I wanted to be able to make sure that I could fasten that panel equally. And so the idea that I came up with for the paneling, I knew that I wanted to use that galvanized steel corrugated roofing that I had, which I have a ton of. I've used it in several different projects. But some of the projects that I was looking at online when I was trying to come up with this idea, I noticed that a lot of times they would just put it all the way across the front of the bar. And I wanted to break mine up a little bit. And then also, maybe add a little bit of a conversation piece in terms of repurposing some of the material I had from that other gazebo that I had sitting out here. So I decided to cut up some of those panels to size, those black steel panels that I had on that gazebo. that was sitting right out here, and I decided to put them across there in intervals, in this case 3 different intervals, and then cut up the galvanized steel panels that I had to fit in between, and just to kind of break up the theme there a little bit, make it look a little bit unusual from the normal ones that just have the galvanized steel all the way across the front. I went out of my way to find ones that had a lot of rust on them just to make it look a little bit more rustic. So that's the idea that I came up with. That's just my idea. There's just so many different ways that you can do this. And so before I put this into place, I just wanted to show you how I did that. Come on, you can do it. You're my little Hercules.
Well, you're not having to move at all. What did you put me on this end for?
Because I knew you could do it. All right, that's it right there. We're good.
Okay.
There you go, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. All right. I am going to call the bar project complete. And so it's just kind of an interesting look. Very homemade, very rustic. And I think it's going to be great. But at this point, as far as the entire deck project, in terms of rebuilding it and refurbishing it, putting the bar in there, that type of thing, I'm going to have to call it done at this point because I've got other things that I need to move on to. And then the ongoing issue is just going to be, going back there and staining all that. But I've got to move on to other projects at this point. I've got some equipment repairs that I have to do. I have some heavy equipment stuff that needs to be taken care of. So let's go ahead and call the bar project and the deck project complete.